We need to be adaptable and understand that dance is always changing.
I said, no, this is not possible. This is not the way that this thing should be happening in my body.
Thank God we dance the way we dance today because it's safer, it's more inclusive, it's easier on the body.
Some instructors fall into giving complexity too early, making the learning a little heavier.
Almost everything that makes sense mechanically in the body is correct. A lot of the times we change our own dance to please the partner. What you should be focusing on is how it feels for you.
One of the ways to retain people is to get them dancing quicker, and then over time we layer the content.
Be more respectful, okay? Be more respectful. If you show up to a class, stay until the end. I think that's the minimum you can do. How do you know if the technique or movement that you're using is right or wrong? When can we trust our teacher, our partner, or ourselves to make that judgment? Well, let's find out. Hello everyone, and welcome back to ZoukNerds. In this episode, we will discuss all the pathways that we can go through to achieve the same thing. I mean, how many different ways can we do the lateral, right? And we'll share the most reasonable system that we have found to create a dance that pleases both my partner and I. So, let's go. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of ZoukNerds. My name is Alisson Sandi, and once again, welcome back our co-host Gui Prada. Hello, Gui.
Hello, Alisson. Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking in a follow-up to the beginners episode that we had recently. We had a lot of questions and more comments from the people who listened. And thanks to you guys, we are now back here to talk more about this. And what we want to talk today is the difference between techniques. What is the right technique? What is the wrong technique? How many laterais versions are out there? Passo básico versions are out there. Soltinho, oh my God. The ages of bonus like this, bonus like that. And what is right? What is wrong? So this is what we want to be talking about. And hopefully, through this episode, we can give you some more clarity on how we think about which way to teach or how to learn and how to best influence the students, but as well to make it make more sense on how to pick and choose for our own dance style, to make sure that we are happy with it. Not necessarily just pleasing the Zouk gods, but actually pleasing our own body and the people that we dance with, right? Okay, what do you think about this topic of right and wrong technique?
I love this topic a lot because over the course of time, I have heard and taught and felt so many different ways in terms of technique, how to do something, how to teach, how to do something, all of that stuff. It changed so much throughout the years, and it keeps changing. And when I say change so much, it means change so much in general, in the whole Brazilian Zouk dance universe, but also change so much in the way that we teach, that I teach, and in the way that it feels like. When I started this in Brazilian Zouk all these years ago, the way to do things was very different. And
oh boy.
It felt good for a little while, but then after a while, the body complained so much that I said, no, this is not possible. This is not the way that this thing should be happening in my body. And the changes that happened over the course of time really helped me, for example, get back into Brazilian Zouk in learning and then eventually in teaching. So the matter of evolution of the technique on the way you teach it and learn it, it's very close to my heart. And I'm very excited about this episode today because I think we're going to mention a couple of things that those who are listening and who are teaching at the moment, especially those who are teaching beginners, are going to resonate strongly with.
Oh, yes. And I think it's important to always recognize that dance is an art form. And being an art form, it's always evolving. So we can never really truthfully look back 20 years ago and say, well, this is how they did it. So therefore, this is how we do it now, right? We need to be adaptable and understand that dance is always changing, always evolving, for good or for bad, whatever that is, it is what it is. Some people feel more comfortable with how the Brazilian Zouk or whatever dance style that you may dance, maybe salsa, tango, West Coast swing, ballroom dance. Some people might be looking at the dance today and going like, I don't like the dance the way it is today. I miss the good old days when we used to do like this. But then you might have people back from those years, same group, same kind of era maybe, and they're actually saying, oh, thank God we dance the way we dance today because my body wouldn't keep up. Just exactly like what Guy said. And when we look at it, every era, every stage of the dance evolution, that comment was always there. You know, for example, we have been dancing this for about 20 years. And when I look at how we used to dance 15, 20 years ago, I think it was a lot more body demanding than what it is now. So much more. So much more. Not exactly for the leaders, but for the followers. Oh my God, the movements were so big, so deep, so bendy, so expensive. So then when I look at the dance today, I'm thinking, thank God we dance the way we dance today because it's safer, it's more inclusive, it's easier on the body. But then you might look at the dance today and think, oh, the dance today is too performative. It's too competitive. It's all about dancing for social media and doing crazy moves and crazy combos. Oh, I miss the good old days and how we used to dance. Right there, we have a complete contradiction between the two styles, maybe let's put 15 years ago and now, and we have a good argument that both of them are too much for the body. So how do we solve this? How do we move on from it, right?
Yeah.
What are the things for you, Guy, that really resonates with the dance that you have now versus the dance that you had before, that makes it feel more like this is me?
Oh, everything you just mentioned, everything we have been talking about. I think the feeling of the dance is easier on the body. The body is able to endure longer periods of dancing without feeling pain or restraints or anything like that. And as you were talking, it was really interesting because I was having this conversation yesterday with Ashley about lambada and Brazilian Zouk. Because right now, in this moment, there has been a lambada intensive week here in Washington, D.C., and now we are starting the lambada weekender. And we concluded the week yesterday, and I was talking to Ashley about it, and she was saying that she finds that lambada head movements is easier to learn because you don't need to prep. You go, like, the one, the head is here, the seven, the head is there. And I was telling Ashley, you know what is funny? Because the reason why Brazilian Zouk started preparing for the head movement is exactly for that reason, because people would just go. So like what one understands as something that makes the dance easier, at some point somebody said, no, this makes it harder. We need to prepare for the head movement. We need to get the spine ready to go.
Yeah, we can also look at it from the safety aspect, right?
Yeah, 100%. Granted that back in the day, it was lower, the head motion was lower, deeper, crazier, faster. Wow. Nowadays, it's way more chill, especially in lambada, happens shoulder up. And that allows for this technique to happen more easily. So back then, this way of execution maybe was not possible in the way that it is today because it was lower, more intense. Let's say more intense. Now it's a little more chill. But it's funny because the thing that prompted the inclusion of a technique, which is let's prepare for the head movement, is now something that has been taken away again. And now it's seen as easier because maybe now the technique of the thing that they create a technique to solve, meaning to just go for the head movement, has evolved. Now it's, more aware, more conscious. And there are other examples of that in the sense that like there was stuff that was included to solve a problem. So that's the thing about the technique in Brazilian Zouk that I see a lot of the classic ones that we used to talk about, that we used to teach. For example, to go to viradinha from a basic step, instead of the leader stepping to the side or stepping around, creating the viradinha, we needed to go for balanço and create the stretch on the opposite way. So we need to go forward to go back. That technique was probably created to solve a problem. There was something that was going on. I was not making the viradinha smoother. But nowadays, the technique evolved to understand that there is impulse, there is momentum, there is flow. You don't need to add more impulse to the impulse that already exists. You just need to redirect. So maybe the explanations got better. We got better breaking down things. So getting better at breaking down things help us to make the technique maybe more streamlined, maybe more cohesive, because we're better at explaining it. And that's something that I think changed a lot. Teachers got way better at explaining things. And when they did that, they realized, wait, why do we need to do all this stuff here to do a viradinha? And then the technique sort of got simpler, maybe.
And something that I like to mention as well is that, man, you have to remember Zouk or Brazilian Zouk as a dance form, as a recognized dance form that came from Lambada. It's only close to 30 years now. Only close to 30 years. If we look at Brazilian Zouk being sort of born around the 2000s, I think it was before the 2000s, but, it took a little bit of time before people were like, okay, this is actually something else that we're doing now. So let's just put 2000 as a starting point. Okay, that's the birth. It's only 25 years. And I always refer to like the 2012s to 2016s as the Zouk teenager mess that it was, because it was. Bro, Zouk was crazy between 2010, 2015, 16. It was difficult to actually dance with anybody that was not in the same group. And what I mean by that is that the techniques were so different. The basic steps, the laterals, everything from the very basic move was so different because each teacher was so, for the lack of better words, expressive in their own way on how they like to do it, that they taught that way. And nowadays we see Brazilian Zouk is an adult. So it looks back and thinks, okay, well, that was a personality, that was an expression, that was a version of me. But when you look at it now, you can see that as a variation, not as the core essence of the dance. And that's exactly what we're talking about today here. In the end of the day, for me, what is right or wrong really is always going to depend on what for. Every time a student asks me in class, hey, Alisson, can I do this? And I'm like, yes, no, maybe, sometimes, more or less, kind of, because it depends. Almost everything that makes sense mechanically in the body is correct. So if you ask me, is my lateral okay? And I'm like, well, yeah. Are you able to do it? Is that feeling good in your body? Can you keep up with the music? Does it make you feel comfortable when you're dancing with the other people? Then yeah. I mean, what is right, what is wrong? Now, if you're talking about, well, I want to be able to do large steps and travel across the floor. Well, then we need to learn some specific techniques. Oh, I want to be able to do this in a way that I have very relaxed hips and relaxed knees, and I don't want to have a lot of muscle tone and tension in my body. Okay, that's a completely different technique from that person who wants to travel across the floor and do some demo marathons across the floor. So right, wrong, I like to say that it's more about what is useful and efficient for what you want to achieve. Head movements, for example. We normally break down the head movement being like in 5 hinges of your spine. But you can multiply that to 10, 15, 12, whatever number you want to use. So you can do head movement from like the highest point in your spine, from maybe one level lower, another level lower, another level lower. And to me, they're all correct. To me, they're all good. Now, which one am I going to teach first? That's a different story. Which one do I recommend a student to learn first? That's a different story. So if somebody's doing head movement like, whoa, huge, super low, I'm going to say, no. Please do it a little higher, do it a little higher. Oh, but I saw a demo, I saw a dancer, I saw something, and they were doing this big. And I'm like, yes. So I'm not telling you it's incorrect. I'm just telling you that the way you're doing right now, it's not safe. It's not efficient for the level of understanding of your body and your partner's body and the connection and all of the things that you have at this point. You will get to a point, if you keep training, to be able to do those things in a safe, efficient way that you can dance and do with people. And as a leader, you will make your partner safe enough to actually give you that connection. Now, if you just go with the technique that you have and you try to do that with a follower out there in the body, in the social, you're probably gonna get a follower very scared and fearing for any injury in their body. So it's hard to say right and wrongs, right, Guy?
Oh man, it's so hard, so hard. And that's something interesting too that I was talking about yesterday about learning lambada, né? I am baby lambadeiro, and learning lambada, I've had this really weird feeling that I can be wrong at any time. In the sense that if the head is not in this position on 5, I screwed up.
Throw it away.
If we are not here, if I'm not in this position, the follows in this position on 7, screw it up too. So there's like this sensation. Of course, I'm a beginner, and of course, I am getting the flow of the dance, and I know that over time, I will be able to sort these things out the way that I do with Brazilian Zouk. The thing is, with Brazilian Zouk, the way that I have conceived it is anything is game. You can adapt the situation. Pretty sure that in lambada we can adapt the situation too. It's just more like this discomfort of learning something that has this really structured path of body position in relation to your partner, head in relation to what foot you're stepping, and the count and everything. So I have a very interesting relationship with right or wrong in terms of partner dancing, especially in Brazilian Zouk. And I think when it comes to technique, and we did an episode about technique once, I think, where we talked about technique being a tool. It is a means to get to something. And we, as instructors, as teachers, we are adapting the technique, or we are adapting this tool or the way to show the tool to the level of experience of the students. So when we talk about the Brazilian Zouk bestsellers, lateral, inner basic, simple turn, bonus. And the simple turn we have to the sides, from the basic, and traveling forwards. So we have all these 3 simple turns. So what else? What is another Brazilian Zouk bestseller? What is another one? Oh, Soltinho. Soltinho is another one of the bestsellers. The way you present how to do it, aka the technique, I think, and I think you agree with me, Alisson, on this one, has to vary depending on the level of experience of the person who is coming to you to learn that step on the first time. Every
Absolutely.
single private lesson, the teacher might pick on your lateral, on your basic. They're going to talk about all of these things. And here in Washington, D.C., and I wanted to point it out because as a result of the episode about teaching beginners, some of the messages we got was relating to who is this beginner. And several of the messages have people talking about their beginners being someone who is coming from bachata, for example, from salsa. So a big number of these beginners are dancers from other styles. A big number of our beginners are non-dancers. They are doing Brazilian Zouk as their first movement thing ever. So the way that we present the content to them is different. In our meetings here, in our core team trainings, where we talk about how we're going to present the content, we talk about this layering of the technique and say, at this point, we present this much. And then after this point, we can put a little bit more. So sort of deciding what is the absolute minimum to have someone making movements that look like or they get really close to the feeling that the dance can have once they achieve more experience. So to do a basic, man, we don't talk about going up and down. We don't talk about all the details of the weight transfer. You know, we talk about it's a full step and a rock step and a full step and a rock step. It's like 2 sentences and a lot of repetition in front of the mirror. You know, I think one of the things that some instructors fall into is giving complexity too early. And then that ends up sort of like making the learning at first maybe a little heavier. And one of the things that we try to do here is retention. So retain people, as we all know, is a thing. One of the ways to retain people is to get them dancing quicker. And I'm not even going to say it's not perfect. You know, it's not fully balanced or fully aware of what's going on or fully embodied, but they're moving, they're dancing. And then over time, we layered the content. So I think that the matter of right or wrong falls into that for me. It's very hard to determine what is right and what is wrong because we are layering content. We are presenting things over time. And if someone comes and see the way that we present stuff at first, they might say, oh, you're doing this wrong because you're not talking about this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. And then we will say, we know. We are consciously not doing that. Because we're going to do this later. Right now, that's enough, you know?
It's all about prioritizing, right?
Yeah.
So when a leader or a follower asks me, is my technique okay here? Am I doing this right? My question is, what are they trying to achieve? What are their level? What experience do they have before Brazilian Zouk? There's so many questions that goes through my mind as I'm about to answer that same question that they pose to me. And depending on how that whole system goes, I might say, you're doing exactly what you need to do, or you're doing good, but you can do this as well, right? For example, the thing that you mentioned about going up and down. In Brazilian Zouk, we use rise and fall. Rise and fall is a terminology that I learned when I trained in ballroom. And Brazilian Zouk has rise and fall. But do we need the rise and fall to be doing a good basic step? Not in my opinion. Because a good basic step, it's a comfortable basic step that moves forwards and backwards and that has good timing, good balance, good rocking, good flow. The up and down, the rise and fall, it happens in different types of music. Naturally, for example. And I showed that to the students. I said, look, guys, if we're dancing very nice and very slow, and normally in class, I'm using 70 beats per minute, 65 beats per minute. You can rock your world in every rock step at that speed. But if I put a little faster music, the dance, the body, everything changes. So then you see that the rock step kind of goes up a little bit the ankle doesn't go down all the way. And those things are very natural, very organic. So when I'm looking at what is right or wrong to learn or to teach, I'm really looking at what is the most comfortable, efficient, safe, and inclusive for that person or for that group at that stage of the dance. Another way that I can explain this is very much the way that I teach a basic step for somebody who's been dancing for 1 month versus somebody who's been dancing for 6 or 12 months. And that alone changes. If that person has been dancing Zouk for a month, but they've been dancing other styles for about 5 years, that already changes the whole thing. So whatever is the raw product, what is the raw product or material that we have, we still have the same process, but the amount of information might be different. For example, when people come to a private lesson, right, and they take all the information, they record everything. And I always allow my students to record an entire private lesson. I'm like, yep, put your camera there. Don't worry about it. I want you to have all of the information to practice again. But then occasionally, they come back with more questions because they have a practice partner that they practice with the material that we did in the private lesson, and it doesn't work with the practice partner. They're like, oh, I'm doing that with my practice partner, but it doesn't work. They're asking me to do it different. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, the information that I gave you is for you, for your body, for how we discovered through a lot of tests, let's do this way. Oh, it doesn't feel good. Okay, let's do this way. Doesn't feel good. Let's do this way. Oh, that feels great. Oh my God. Yes, I feel the ground. I feel my hips. I feel everything beautiful. Great. Lock that feeling. But now you're dancing with somebody else. And that person doesn't like how it feels for them. So they're asking you to change. But in the reality, what you should be focusing on is how it feels for you. And your partner should then recognize and understand how it feels for you. And through their dance, find a way to match and connect with that. A lot of the times, we change our own dance to please the partner versus looking for what is good for ourselves in our body, in the way that we like to dance, and then learning all of the other different ways for the sake of being able to dance with anybody and adapt with anyone. That's two different things. Learn the dance that is for you and learn the dance that is to be able to dance with people that don't necessarily dance like you. That's extremely important, and that's something that a lot of people probably don't even know it's a thing, right? Like Guy has a very specific way that he likes to dance. I have a very specific way that I like to dance. Both of us are very different in many ways. But in the end of the day, both of us are extremely similar in the sense that we learn everything from all of the other styles to be able to understand, process, and adapt. And that's kind of like the magic formula, in my opinion. If you're a beginner, I know that it's a lot. So just focus on what you can do and everything that you can retain. But going back to the retention situation that Guy was talking about, we don't want a community that can dance with each other but cannot dance with other people from a different school, from a different city, from a different country. We want a community that can dance with everybody. So that's what drives every decision that we make when we're thinking about how to structure our classes, what exact technique to choose, and so many other things. For example, do you remember, Guy, when we were going through months and months of discussions talking about which version of bonus should we teach when we were teaching at District Zouk at the same time, when I was still living in DC? For months. And we went through rounds and rounds of trial. Let's test this way. Let's test that way. Let's try to put a little bit more in the warm-up a couple of weeks earlier before we actually teach the bonus. Let's teach them the traveling turn without bonus, just as part of the warm-up. They don't know, but they're trusting us, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
And we also tell them, we're like, hey guys, by the way, this is not something that we're learning now, but this is something that we're going to need in a couple of weeks. And that's something that we do throughout our curriculum. And we mentioned in previous episodes. And if you haven't yet, please go back, listen to those previous episodes after this one, and make sure to please follow and subscribe wherever you're watching this, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, or whatever app. And we're always talking about like how we can make things easier for the student. Because what do we want? We want retention. How do we get retention? By adapting to the students that we have. Do you have a lot of salsa students? Great. Change your entire curriculum to be more friendly for people who learn salsa before Zouk. What does that mean? Well, there are so many moves in Zouk that are somewhat similar to salsa. Include them right there. So then people already feel like, oh my God, this dance is not so hard to dance, not so hard to learn. Because the number one reason why a lot of people give up on Zouk is because, oh my God, Zouk is so hard. You know, I did a beginner's course for 2 months and I still couldn't dance. That's not your fault. That's your teacher's fault. Your teachers were teaching in a way that is too difficult, not in a way that is inclusive. I think that's really what drives my passion, is learning how to teach differently to every different group that I encounter. In DC, I teach one way. In Taipei, I teach a different way. When I'm in Melbourne, I teach a different way. All because, for me, I let the students tell me how to teach, what information to give, because I'm looking at what they need and how they respond and what their body does more naturally, so I can explore that and make them feel great about it, versus, like I've said this a million times, versus erasing whatever is there already and telling them, no, all that you're doing is this and this is not Zouk. Like, bro,
Yeah.
let's talk about dance. I think dancing is more important than being this image of a certain teacher who says that it's only this way or it's not that dance, right? We want inclusiveness. We want people to feel good.
Yeah. We get a lot in this topic of what is and what isn't. This is this is not this. And when I think about technique, right and wrong, what technique to teach as a teacher specifically, I come to the realization that we need to make exercises to learn how to detach, not to get attached to a way of teaching and doing things. Like really, really allowing ourselves to be more flexible and understand this person is saying this for a reason, because of this background, because of this feeling that they are trying to achieve, because of these results, basically that. So when someone comes to you or to me, to anybody, with a take on a technique, or like, I think we should do this way, ask why doing this way to achieve what result for what people. You know, like Alisson was saying, it's a matter of getting the dance more accessible, more friendly, you know. And here in Washington, D.C., we have a crowd of 50, 60 year plus, you know, and certain ways that you present the technique. How are you going to ask that lady over there to engage her core? You know, how are you going to ask her lady to engage her core? How are you going to ask that lady to do certain things that her body cannot do? At least not yet, you know. So we can slowly exercise and getting the body ready to eventually engage the core. So it's like he's creating that preparation. And that's the layering thing that we were talking about. Né? Of course, they can engage their core. It's more like, is it the first thing you're going to say? And that's the sensitivity for us to develop, because we don't know how that it might land for someone who is coming to do something for the entertainment, their fun, something they do on a Tuesday night to meet people, to enjoy, you know, community. So now as a dancer, as someone who loves to social dance, then it's like, with how many people doing the thing this way resonates with. And resonate meaning the communication. Is there ease in the emotions, there ease in the communication, or are we bumping? Are we having those little glitches from time to time? And that was the issue back in the day with me. I could only dance really well with the people from my studio, with people from other studios. It was harder. And I mean specifically Brazilian Zouk. Yeah, if I talk about samba, tango, bolero, then it's another story. But specifically Brazilian Zouk, I remember I was from Jaimarosha and I used to go to the Renata Peçanha dance studio and be unable to dance. It was super interesting and nerve-wracking at the same time, because I remember I was dancing Zouk with a follower from there and I was like, we are speaking completely different languages. Very hard. So my desire to have easier dance with more people, I think, start to create this flexibility in the technique, in the approach of the technique. So understanding that this tool that we are using to do something can be modified and can take different shapes depending on the feeling we're trying to achieve. So talking about the Zouk bestsellers again. When somebody goes and talk about a lateral, or when you go talk about somebody else's lateral, understand or try to see what is the result. Do you want the person to be more balanced? Do you want the person to be more aware of the direction that they are going? Do you want the person to improve on their posture? Do you want them to be more aware of the weight transfers? So it's not the weight do lateral, but a weight do lateral that achieves this result here. So the person is better posture, more balanced, aware of their line. So you detach from a way that the lateral should be done. This is how we do. And then you just present the content. This is the technique. Boom. Like right away, just like regurgitating what you once heard. And so instead of doing that, you find why, for what. Then you lay out the content. And that comes with experience, and that comes with observation. And over time, you start to develop, like Alisson is saying, teaching one way in DC, teach a different way in Taipei. Like developing this eye to see this group of people will benefit from this thing here because it will be nice for them to have this thing here. And from there you go, I think we need to, talking as teachers, engage differently with the technique. If we are thinking about keeping people in the dance, and if we are thinking about creating a community where someone gets on the dance floor and they don't need to choose too much who they're gonna dance with. They know if they go to that person, they're gonna have a nice, chill dance because they are communicating in a common language that allows for ease of motion. And that's what I'd like to see more on the dance floor, on the Zouk universe. I don't travel as much to spend as much time in the scenes to see the reality of how things are. Everything I know is what people come to us and tell us about their scene. And then when we eventually go there, we see what's up. But again, we are getting just a snapshot, or we're getting just a moment of something. It would be interesting for me, at least, to see more, to learn more about how are people layering their content? How are they putting everything out to their students and how that's resonating with them?
Something that I really encourage people is to be open, to have a beginner mentality on whatever you do. So when you go to a workshop with a different teacher in a different location, instead of thinking, well, this is a different lateral and I'm not going to do it because I don't like the way they're doing it. For that hour, try to think, this is a different way and I want to experience it so I have more information about how does that feel. Oh, but I've already tried it before. I don't like it. Try it again. You're not the same person that you were when you tried it last time. You have more knowledge, you have more experience. Maybe that time it'll make sense. I'm not saying that this is going to stick and it's going to replace what you already know and what you already like. But at least you're going to have a different experience of how that feels in your body and when that is useful or not. And in the end of the day, I think it's also something that my teacher used to say. Take lessons from everybody. You will learn what to do and what not to do. I think it's a great example, because yes, sometimes you take a lesson from somebody and go like, okay, yeah, I definitely don't want that. But I don't stop taking lessons because of that. I'll still take lessons from that person. I'll still want to learn what that person teaches, because everybody has something to share that is going to improve my experience in dance and how I share my experience in dance as a dancer, as a student, and as a teacher with anybody out there. So stay open, stay curious, and try to experience as many things as possible in dance, in life, in everything.
Yeah, because when you do it again, I think your level of body awareness is different from the level that you had when you did it for the first time. So when you did it for the first time, with the awareness that you had, you might not be able to achieve the feeling that maybe that instructor is wanting you to achieve. Then a couple of years later, you try it again, and like, that's what they meant,
Yeah, so many times. And we've spoken about it recently, that we've been through different classes and different teachers where we're like, yeah, I don't know about this that they're teaching to this group. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that. And multiple times by the end of the class, I'm like, it worked. It worked.
Yeah.
And it feels good. It's nice. Wow. Okay. Shut up, Alisson. Don't say anything anymore. Just go for it. Because it's contradicting to what I'm saying before. But what I'm saying is I'm always open. I'm always a student. I'm always out there trying to learn something. That doesn't mean that my critical mind and my brain already thinks about something like, I don't know about this. Yes, I do think about that. But I'm still there, and I'm still trying, and I'm still learning. I don't go to a workshop or teacher, and I'm talking to all of you out there who workshop hop in a festival, okay?
Yeah.
Dear Lord. These people who they show up to the workshop and watch for 2 or 3 minutes, like, is it good enough for me? And then they walk away. Like, bro, come on. Be more respectful, okay? Be more respectful. If you show up to a class, stay until the end. I think that's the minimum you can do.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that really feels unsafe, which in that case, I would strongly recommend you to actually stay to the end of the class, or leave the class if you have to, but come back and tell the teacher, hey, are you open to feedback? I felt something in your class and I would like to share with you. Honestly, if that ever happens in my class, I beg you to do that for me. Come to me and tell me, because I need to learn why something made you feel a certain way, and that is going to help me. And that's going to help any teacher out there. And if they don't think it's helpful, that's their loss. Because I would love for somebody to come and tell me, hey, I came to a workshop, but I don't know, after 10 minutes, I felt like you guys just weren't delivering what you promised to deliver. And I would love to hear more about it and to ask questions. Or I felt like the technique that you guys were teaching is not good for this reason or for that reason. I would love to. But that's just me being selfish here and asking for more help because I want to get better. But in any case, I think, please stay open, and through knowledge, and I think that's a good way to kind of summarize this episode. Through a lot of knowledge, we're able to make better decisions. That's just life, right? So what is right, what is wrong, don't worry about it. As long as it feels safe and it feels good in your body and it feels right for the goals that you have with your dancing, just give it a go. Try this way, try that way, try every teacher, and hopefully after a couple of years, you have a better understanding of your dance. But then I like to do a kind of like a check of accounts every couple of years, every couple of months, to be honest. I think every 6 months my dance changes, but definitely every 1 or 2 years, I look at everything that I know and I'm like, is this still serving me for who I am now? For what I like to dance? Is it still serving me, or am I just doing this because that's just the way I've been doing it? Dance evolves, we evolve as people, and we should always just understand that new information is new information. Whether it's good or not, then it's up to us to judge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it keeps changing. It's an evolution. And partner dancing in general, Brazilian Zouk, is an exercise of embodiment. And like Alisson was saying, feeling your body. And guys, truly feeling your body. It's really all about that. I see so much people, it seems like they're primarily dancing their heads. They're primarily dancing here. They're primarily like, oh, this is not going to work without trying, because in their heads, it seems that it's not going to work. As for me, one of the most incredible exercise of embodiment, of kinetic experience. Try this stuff in your body, see how it feels in your body, and see how it changes. Example, this week, we had peão class. And we had a peão class with Iago and Vanessa and a peão class with Ariel and Letícia. 2 different peão classes. And then people were like, trying one, trying the other. I just did the Iago and Vanessa one, didn't do the Ariel and Letícia one. And then in the Iago and Vanessa one, they were talking about connecting and staying connected with the inner thigh, with the right inner thigh, applying some consistent pressure all the way. Something that I don't teach. And I ask people, Bara, only do this in specific, very particular situations. And that class was one of the specific particular situations that doing the peão that way works perfectly well.
Yeah.
And I was there doing the class as a student, focusing on keeping my right leg in front, inner thigh connected, applying that consistent pressure and going around. So I was using what I know of peão with this tool of keeping the legs connected. And feeling, how does it feel like? How does it work? And then realizing, for this particular situation here, it works so well that if I did my way, it wouldn't work really well. For example, if I was attached to a way of doing peão, I could have sat on the chair and watched that session or watched the whole class, judging it in my head, or I would be kind of half-assing, half doing it, and still criticizing in my head, oh, this doesn't work really well. So Cambré, Ariel Cambré, the hip is all the way in the front there. He's like a slope like this, so hard to do. And then in my body, I was like, how is that even possible? But there I was trying to do that Cambré with the hip all the way in the front. And like, oh my God, it truly works. It's so nice. There's all the support for the follower. And guys, it's just about trying your body. And that's another thing too. I'm like, something that I would initially reject, I watch them dancing the thing. I watch them using the tool, using the technique, and they do all this beautiful, magical stuff. And I'm like, this works, man. This works. It's just not in my body yet. I just need to bring it in, So that's the invitation that I think we leave here in this episode. Try in your body. See how it feels. Trying to try in your body without the judgment that's not going to work before you even try it. I think that's the hardest part. I think that's where you need to detach. You didn't even try yet. You're about to try, but you already know it's not going to work. This knowing that's not going to work, that's what will trick you to really not feel the thing. And that's the exercise. Trying to clear and trying to, like Alisson say, for that 1 hour, do it that way and see how it feels. So the techniques will lose the label of right or wrong for you. Or they will get a lot more flexible. And something will be wrong when it's uncomfortable, when it's unsafe. Besides that, it depends. maybe like Alisson said on that. So maybe, who knows, depends sometimes, you know. It
Yes,
really
no,
will depend.
maybe sometimes.
Yes, no, maybe sometimes, exactly.
Yeah, it's quite funny. The students who always come to my class, they will ask a question. They go like, Alison, can I ask a question? Can I do this? And then somebody in the class will go like, yes, no, maybe sometimes. Because a lot of the things are like that. You know, yes, no, maybe sometimes. Yes, you can. No, not right now. Maybe if you were in this situation. And sometimes it might be okay. But it's all relative. It's all relative to what we're talking about. And that's what we wanted to bring it to you guys here. Right or wrong is not something that we really classify in the arts industry, you know, as long as it feels safe, inclusive, comfortable, and stay open. Stay a beginner mindset your entire life, and you're going to love dancing forever. And once again, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us in another episode. Please follow us in our social medias and help us continue this project that we love so much. Your support, your views, your likes, your shares, all of those things, they help us so much. So thank you for that. And the more you can do, the more we can do. And we'll see you on the next one. Beijos, beijos, everybody. Abraços and ciao.
Bye, everybody.